It's an ode and a tribute to one of my the guys I look up
Richie.
to, and Richie Medhurst, man. He killed it with this one. And this is an
Good old
exclusive.
Dick Medhurst.
All right, yeah, Big Dick Medhurst, as Pasta likes to call him, but classified documents invalidate the U.S.'s appeal against Assange. Talking about David Mendoza, and who is David Mendoza? Well, he goes into an entire story, and he apparently interviewed David Mendoza. This is available at Richard's Substack at richardmedhurst.substack.com. Okay,
We'll
so who is David Mendoza?
Article.
Yeah, we'll drop that in chat.
Yep.
Sure, for everyone to go and give him a follow, a subscribe there. This is a pretty amazing piece. This was at the end of last week, but that David Mendoza Herarte was extradited from Spain to the U.S. on condition that he be allowed to serve his sentence in Spain. Okay, but then classified documents revealed the diplomatic assurances given and how they violated those. Okay, and then he spent 6 years in the U.S. trying to return to Spain. And court documents show how they denied his transfer application multiple times. And that while in prison, he sued the U.S. and Spain for failing to uphold the conditions of his extradition and for violating his human rights. And that his case was recently even taken up by the United Nations. Pretty wild story.
Gotcha. Yep.
Right? And that his case was raised last month in the English High Court, okay, where the U.S. is attempting to extradite Julian Assange to the U.S. Free Julian Assange. We should be dropping that case. And this is every reason why we should be, another reason why we should be dropping the case is because that we offered a similar diplomatic assurance that Assange could serve a sentence in Australia once he serves trial over here, but that they can change venue, they can move things around, they can drag their feet, they can do all kinds of crazy stuff to him to keep him here, even if they assure that he might be able to serve at some point and be in prison in Australia if he's found guilty, which he shouldn't be at all. But anyway, James Lewis, the head U.S. prosecutor, QC James Lewis, said that these assurances are bulletproof, except that Richard Medhurst has shown this to be untrue with court documents, diplomatic assurances that directly contradict his statement. So this is great work by Richard to blow the lid off this again, and just further reason. So again, a couple of highlights from David Mendoza after he spoke to him. Okay, he was born and raised in the U.S. His mother was from Spain. He'd go there every summer, and he described it as his second home. And he's both an American and Spanish national. He was wanted by the U.S. for drug trafficking in the early 2000s. I'm reading from the rest of the article here that he used helicopters. It's similar to like Blow to transport marijuana, currently commonly known as BC Bud. I don't know. You might be a little young for that. I definitely had some BC Bud.
I remember.
BC Bud across the border into Seattle. It certainly made its way all the way across the country to New York. BC Kind definitely made its way around. And today, of course, marijuana is legal in Seattle. So he worked in building property development, made good money. He said he only did this on the side to help subsidize some of his building projects, right? The first thing that happened was they tried to seize all of his U.S. property. And again, this is a really, really long article, and Richard gets exclusive paperwork, signed documents, FOIA requests, stuff from the Spanish National Court rulings, exclusive stuff. This is great work from Richard. I almost wanted to share the article that, but Mendoza said that if he hadn't handed over the building, that they wouldn't oppose his transfer request. So he has to put it in writing. He was told no, right? And essentially they wanted to get his stuff back. And at this point, they'd already seized 14 million of his assets and properties, even though most of it had no relation to narcotics. He said only 2 million was spent on that. And then he was also then sentenced to 14 years in prison. But instead of being sent to Spain, he was told to apply for a treaty transfer. And he applied, and the U.S. said no. Wait, what? It was done in a treaty already. Okay, and he applied 3 times for a treaty transfer. This is a crazy story, right? And this is what they're probably going to try to do if they ever get Assange to the U.S. shores. And this is what the case that Richard is making here, and that he's documenting. It's pretty remarkable. Okay, that the U.S. continues to deny this guy to leave, and he said that's when I realized I'm in the wrong court. I'm going to get nothing here. So he sued Spain instead, and it actually worked. So he won both of his lawsuits, and then it was about Spain pressuring the United States and having somebody high enough in Spain exerting enough pressure. Okay, they were ordered to hand over diplomatic communications with the U.S., which had previously refused to give Mendoza. They revealed that Spain had only asked the Americans to send Mendoza back 2 times, which was disappointing. In total, he spent 6 years and 9 months in the U.S. prison system, each day in violation of this U.S.-Spain extradition treaty that had been signed and the conditions imposed by the Spanish National Court. I mean, it's beyond an injustice. So once he was in Spain, he didn't get out until 2019. All right. Now, the thing is that the whole idea of why he was going to serve in Spain to begin with is because he could, the Spanish prison system allows you to spend time with your family. It allows for conjugal visits. Yeah. He had a newborn at the time. He had an autistic child. And
also some of the best rolling papers in the world, but
he lost that, of course, over time. And he said like his kids call him David now. They didn't even call him Dad. And it's really sad. So it says that, yeah, this case is incredible on its own merits. Nevertheless, it must be examined in the context of Assange's extradition, and that when James Lewis told High Court judges that the United States have never broken diplomatic assurance ever, that this is simply untrue. So Mendoza's experience shows that for Assange, any diplomatic assurances or agreements must be written in explicit language and signed by all parties, including him, so that in the eventuality of noncompliance, he may be afforded the opportunity to contest this in court, despite his status as a non-signatory of the U.S.-UK extradition treaty. That's one of the things that the U.S. courts kept saying was, well, if you didn't sign the treaty, then you have no standing and you have no claim to it. So you can't claim, make anybody enforce it, even if it includes your story, which is crazy. But it offers the court extraordinary insight into the inner workings of American diplomacy, legal proceedings, and extradition to the U.S. It is a serious warning which High Court justices should heed, and I'm hoping they do, who at their discretion have the power to prevent gross miscarriages of justice, which gravely imperil the respondent before they arise. And Mendoza says that he's a nobody, and if they're capable of doing this to him, imagine what they can do to Julian.
Yeah.
Again,
so
is a tremendous article.
What's been happening? Do you know what's been happening in the trial recently? Right?
Well,
like what's going on there?
They had a hearing back at the end of October that was 2 or 3 days long. It was 2 days long, and that was the appeal. And we are now waiting for the appeal result from the High Court in the UK.
Gotcha.
And in the meantime, he continues to rot in Belmarsh and be given inadequate blankets. And
is it still over the allegation of sexual assault from him, or is it?
No, this is over the Iraq War log specifically.
Okay.
Still.
Okay.
This is not
so
about 2016
claim, or
this is using the Espionage Act for a journalist. Daniel Ellsberg had testified originally on his behalf in this extradition trial that had happened last September, which the judge Baritzer had ruled back in January that the U.S. prison system was inhumane, which we all thought that meant that he was going to be released, but that the U.S. Had the right to appeal, and the Biden administration did announce that they were going to appeal. Merrick Garland is pursuing that. Merrick Garland should be dropping these charges because of all the things that have come out this year, the persecution that happened, the Isikoff article about what happened in Spanish with the Spanish embassy, and UC Global, which we already knew about 2020 thanks to Max Blumenthal, and that David Morales case. There is the Ziggy Thordarson revelations that he actually lied under oath to get a plea deal. There are so many different things that reasons why he should be set free at this point. Enough is enough, and that's the thing.
Yeah.
So by all means, Richard, great article. Thank you, my brother.
Well, you better get hip to indie left, indie left, indie left.news.